Okay, so today we're going deep on something a little different.
Yeah,
Yeah, a little different, but really important.
definitely.
We're looking at how language,
Mm-hmm.
especially coming from people in power, like government officials,
Okay.
can impact the people they govern.
Interesting.
We'll be looking at the Gambia,
Right.
specifically President Barrow's administration.
Okay.
And we're going to be basing this deep dive on some insights from Rizki-Produkt official TV.
And they advocate for
Yeah.
social democracy.
Yeah. They're all about like social democracy and they want to see some big reforms.
Big reforms in the Gambia.
In the Gambia, exactly.
Okay.
And one of the things that really stood out to me from their analysis was this analogy they use.
Oh, yeah. Tell me about that.
It's pretty striking.
Okay.
So picture that they say the Gambian people are like cars
Car.
trying to navigate through snow.
Okay. Through snow.
And the snow, you guessed it,
The government.
is the government itself.
Wow. That's
It's pretty powerful, right?
yeah, that's a powerful image.
I mean, it really makes you think about like those mornings when you're trying to get to work and your car's just stuck,
Yeah.
spinning its wheels in the snow.
You're slipping and sliding.
Exactly.
You can't get any
I
traction.
mean, just like, come on.
Yeah.
I just need to get going.
You just want to get where you need to go.
Right. And so Rizki-Produkt is basically saying that instead of clearing the snow,
Mm-hmm.
making things easier for its citizens,
Right.
the government might actually be creating obstacles,
Interesting.
making it harder for Gambians to get where they need to be.
Like adding more snow to the road.
Exactly.
Oh.
And one person they specifically call out is Ismaila Ceesay,
Oh.
the Minister of Information.
And what about him?
They're concerned about the language he's been using
Okay.
towards Gambians in public,
Right.
It's been pretty,
Inappropriate.
yeah, you could say that.
Strong language.
You'd think the Minister of Information would be a little more careful with his words, right?
You think so?
You'd think he'd understand the power of words.
Right, because it's not just about being polite.
Yeah.
Like using that kind of language, it can really hurt people's trust,
Totally.
especially trust in their leaders.
Yeah, it's like if you constantly feel like your leaders are disrespecting you,
Yeah.
it's going to lead to resentment,
Right.
frustration, even anger.
It erodes the relationship.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It makes me think about Yahya Jammeh.
Oh, wow.
Remember him?
Yeah.
His regime was full of that kind of rhetoric.
Right.
And, well, we all know how that ended.
Not well.
Not well at all.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's like a cautionary tale.
Definitely a cautionary tale.
Jammeh's authoritarian rule and his dismissive attitude towards Gambians, it just fueled the fire of discontent.
Yeah, it's like he didn't realize, or maybe didn't care,
Right.
how much his words were affecting people.
Exactly. And ultimately, it led to his downfall.
It's a powerful reminder for anyone in a position of power.
Yeah, the power of words is real.
Oh.
So, okay, we've talked about the analogy.
Right.
I've talked about the historical precedent with Jammeh.
Yeah.
What can the Gambia do now to avoid making the same mistakes?
Well, Rizki-Produkt, they point to a few key institutions.
Yep.
The National Assembly,
Mhm.
the police force,
Okay.
and the judiciary.
Right, like the courts.
Exactly.
Right.
And they say these institutions have a huge responsibility to uphold democratic principles and ensure accountability.
So, like, what would that look like practically?
Okay, so let's start with the National Assembly.
Okay.
They could implement stricter ethical guidelines for how officials talk in public.
Right.
Hold them accountable for the language they use.
Give me
Then you've got the police force.
Right.
They have a tough job
Yeah.
protecting freedom of speech while also preventing hate speech.
That's a fine line.
A very fine line.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the judiciary.
Uh-huh.
They need to make sure the rule of law is upheld and that any consequences for inappropriate speech are fair and just.
So it sounds like it needs to be a team effort,
Absolutely, a multi-pronged approach.
from setting standards to enforcing them and having checks and balances in place.
Exactly.
It can't just be one branch of government.
Right. It has to be a holistic effort.
Yeah. And I think it's important to remember, this isn't just about avoiding negative consequences.
Right.
Creating a culture of respect
Yes.
where people communicate respectfully.
Uh-huh.
That's a good thing in itself.
It is.
It makes for a more harmonious society
Definitely.
where everyone feels valued and heard.
Exactly.
It's like they say,
What's that?
you catch more flies with honey than with vinegar.
Oh, I like that.
If you want a nation to thrive, you need to use a little honey.
I agree with that.
But that brings me to a thought I want to leave our listeners with.
Okay, I'm listening.
Think about the power dynamics in your own life,
Okay.
at work, in your community, even at home.
Mm-hmm.
How does the language people use shape those relationships?
Interesting question.
Could a little more honey, a little more respect in your words make a difference?
Something to think about.
Looking at some trends that are honestly kind of worrying.
Right.
Especially the way President Barrow and his administration are talking.
Yeah, the rhetoric.
Yeah, and what it could mean for the Gambia as a whole.
Stability, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Big question.
So the group we're focusing on here is called Rizki-Produkt Official TV.
Interesting name.
Yeah, they're really big on social democracy.
Okay, reform-minded.
Exactly.
Sure.
And they're waving some pretty big red flags about the way people in power are talking, especially the Minister of Information.
Ismaila Ceesay, right?
Yeah, him. They're saying it's getting really disrespectful and divisive.
And that's what Rizki-Produkt Official TV is calling out.
Yeah, but it's not like they're just complaining.
Right.
They're actually going back and looking at history.
Okay, using those examples.
Exactly, showing how this kind of talk has messed things up before.
Because it has, hasn't it?
Oh, big time.
Like they even bring up Yahya Jammeh.
Yeah, how his whole regime fell apart.
It's not a coincidence, right? All those years of him being aggressive, insulting people, even ordinary Gambians.
It definitely chipped away at people's trust.
Absolutely. And eventually, that's what brought him down.
So what worries me is, are we seeing the same thing happen again with Barrow?
Well, that's what Rizki-Produkt Official TV is suggesting.
Yeah, like, it's more than just being rude, right? It's about a pattern.
A pattern of behavior, yeah.
That could lead us down the same path as Jammeh.
A dangerous path.
And they have all these examples from other countries, too.
Oh, right. Lay it on us.
Like Kenya under Daniel Arap Moi.
Okay, interesting.
Rizki-Produkt Official TV says he was always attacking his rivals, just dismissing anyone who disagreed with him.
And that alienated people, right.
Totally, like they just felt ignored and disrespected.
Yeah, it creates that us versus them feeling.
Which leads to what?
Mistrust, resentment.
Exactly.
And that makes it super hard to actually govern.
Oh, for sure.
People just stop believing in you.
Okay, but it's not just Moi, right? Rizki-Produkt Official TV also talks about Rodrigo Duterte in the Philippines.
Oh, yeah, I remember him.
All those, those outbursts.
The profanity.
Yeah, it sparked huge protests.
Yeah, people were outraged.
Then there's Yoweri Museveni in Uganda.
What about him?
Well, he was really harsh towards the opposition, especially Bobi Wine.
Interesting.
And what's crazy is it actually made people support Wine even more.
Oh, so a backfire.
Big time.
Sometimes trying to shut people up just makes them louder.
That's for sure.
Especially young people. They want leaders who listen, not attack.
And we can't forget about Donald Trump in the U.S.
Right.
Rizki-Produkt Official TV says all his, all that stuff he said.
The insults, the name-calling.
Yeah, it really hurt America's image on the world stage.
Yeah, image their reputation.
Made it harder to work with other countries.
Yeah, cooperation goes out the window.
And that's what's scary. Because if Barrow keeps going like this,
especially with Ceesay egging him on,
the Gambia could end up in the same boat.
Isolated, distrusted.
Exactly.
Because words have power, right? They send a message about how a government sees its people.
Right.
And if it's all about control and confrontation...
it doesn't exactly inspire confidence.
Not at all. It pushes people away.
Okay, so where does this leave the Gambia? Be a counterweight to all this bad rhetoric from Barrow.
Exactly.
But, like, how? What can they actually do?
Well, the National Assembly needs to hold the executive branch accountable, like demand a higher standard of behavior.
So not necessarily shutting people down.
No, it's about fostering healthy debate.
Which is kind of the point of democracy, right?
Absolutely. Different opinions, but with respect.
Makes sense.
No, the police force, they have a tough job.
Oh, yeah.
They need to keep things peaceful, but without trampling on people's rights.
Right, like people should be able to protest.
Exactly. Freedom of assembly, that's crucial.
Even if they're criticizing the government.
Especially then, that's when it matters most.
Okay, and what about the judiciary? What's their role?
Think of them as the referees of the legal system.
Okay.
They make sure everyone plays by the rules.
So protecting free speech.
But also setting limits on hate speech.
Yeah, that's a tough balance.
It is, but super important, especially when things are tense like this.
So in theory, we have these groups that can keep things in check.
Right.
But let's be real, under Jammeh, they didn't exactly do much.
That's true. They were pretty much under his thumb.
So why should we think it'll be any different this time?
That's the big question, isn't it? It is. These institutions need real power, real independence.
So they can do what they're supposed to do.
Exactly, not just what Barrow wants.
But that takes more than just willpower, right?
It does. It takes a commitment from everyone.
Everyone.
Yeah, like the whole society needs to value democracy.
Holding leaders accountable, demanding transparency.
And not letting themselves be silenced.
Wow, that's a tall order.
It is, but it's the only way to make it work.
So to sum things up, it sounds like we're at a crossroads.
Definitely.
President Barrow and Minister Cisse are using language that's, well, not great.
Understatement of the year.
And history shows that kind of talk can have serious consequences.
Yeah, it erodes trust, creates division.
And it can lead to instability, even violence.
Exactly.
But we've also talked about these institutions that could maybe, hopefully, prevent that.
The National Assembly, the police force, the judiciary.
Right, if they can act independently, uphold democracy.
Then maybe, just maybe, we can avoid another Jammeh situation.
But it's not just up to them, is it?
Nope, it's up to every single Gambian.
To speak out, hold their leaders accountable.
Demand better, demand respect.
Because ultimately, the future of the Gambia is in their hands.
That's the truth.
So, to our listener, we ask you, what role will you play in shaping that future?
It's something to think about, for sure.
Yeah, it's a big question, and one we hope you'll keep wrestling with.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us in this deep dive. It's been
intense.
Intense is a good word for it.
But important.
Yeah, definitely important,